Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is the Piracy Show. And this is me engaging in a little combat with the Pirate Caterpillar using, of course, the command pod guns because there's no one in the turrets right now. And it was interesting. I'll say that. It was interesting. I was kind of hoping it was going to work out a different way. I had taken this mission after I realized this NPC was hanging out outside of Covalex shipping. I wanted to go in there and see if I couldn't rip off some of the crates. I tried that previously and it hadn't been successful. And while I was looking through the missions, I of course saw this NPC's name. And once I saw that he was there at Covalex, I decided, well, let's capitalize on that. But unfortunately, this other NPC beat me to it. So that cost me about 310 credits. But I decided to proceed anyways into the Covalex, the wreck, and see if after I completed the mission, if I couldn't maybe retrieve one of the crates and see if there was money to be made that way. Now, this is something that I have attempted in the past to varying degrees of failure because I have never succeeded at it. Going all the way back to 263, I had gotten in here and I had, shown a video where I had stolen the Big Benny's machine after considerable effort in 0G of bouncing that thing out of the station into my Caterpillar, flying away with it, and then it just disappeared. That was pretty disappointing. But with persistence, I figured, you know what, grab one of these big crates, throw it in the ship, and then take it back to Olisar and see if you can sell it. Who knows, right? I mean, it's in 0G, so it doesn't really weigh anything right now. So if I can get it to bounce into my ship, maybe I can make some money that way. Now, I know what you're probably thinking is that why didn't you just use the Cutlass for something like this? And the truth is, simply, the Caterpillar's got bigger doors. It's one of the things that comes in handy about this ship is it's got those big doors on either side, and hopefully at some point in the future, functional tractor beams. And so I just wanted to test it out. If this is worth something, then I can come back with the Caterpillar. It'll be real easy to kind of pack all these crates in there and hopefully find another way to make some money as a pirate. Sure, go do the good guy thing, complete the insurance scam mission, and then at the same time, why not lift some unclaimed goods from Covalex and maybe make a few dollars? Now, in the past, this has been something of a problematic venture. There have been instances in the past where I've tried to get these crates onto a Cutlass or onto the Caterpillar, and I've just been rebounded out of the ship 50 million times. I've been killed while being rebounded out of the ship. I've had the crate somehow bounce off the ship into me and kill me, where we were both kind of like jammed in the doorway, and I died and, of course, lost the ship. A number of fun things that have happened over time. But I really hadn't tried it since the 7.1 patch. 7.1, what am I thinking of here? Sorry, the 3.1 patch. Teleporting myself to another game in my mind right now. But, yeah, so I hadn't gotten it to work up till now. And I figured, you know what, this is a good opportunity to go and give it another shot and see if we can't get away with it and make some money. I just wanted to find a different, more interesting way to make money in the verse. Sure, I could take my Caterpillar and I could go to ArcCorp and I could go to Shuba and I could buy aluminum or buy whatever minerals and then bring them back to Olisar and sell them, and on and on and on, back and forth, back and forth. But it's really not that interesting, right? I wanted, at least to, have the idea that I was doing something a little bit more interesting, and kind of going into these stations and stealing these crates felt like something that would be kind of fun. And besides, if you figure out, holy shit, these are actually worth something, possibly worth a lot of credits, put this out there, let people know about it, and who knows, maybe next thing you know, next time I log on to the server and start playing, all of a sudden I find a bunch of Starfarers and Caterpillars and Cutlasses out there while people are having gunfights over crates, and that would be kind of funny to see that kind of happen. And I think the real test was this, when I kind of went in just to see if the crate was still there. And it was. Physics. Interesting. Okay. I'll accept it. Remember, still early access. And so, time to go in and see if it was actually worth anything. And that's been always one of the interesting possibilities around the Caterpillars, the idea of the tractor beams, because, you know, there are tractor beams on either side. If you go into the top kind of observation deck opposite the cockpit, you have one tractor beam control. And the lower cockpit, the front window there, has a tractor beam control as well. And so tractor beams not being implemented. Obviously, one of the interesting things that you could do with the Caterpillar is if a ship got blown up for whatever reason and there was a whole bunch of cargo floating in space, you could get in either of those doors and, of course, then start vacuuming that cargo up into the ship's hold. And I know that we're still not, there yet, obviously, but sometimes you just feel yourself kind of pushing to see if you can kind of get some kind of feeling of what it's going to be like. But in the end, ultimately, it's just too soon. The crates just, while they exist and while you can steal them and it will make an interesting item to be carrying around inside of my ship, unfortunately, their value is 0, which I understand. I mean, you can't sit there and say, oh, I can't believe that in all the time you guys had to put 3.1 together, you didn't put in some niche idea like this. Shame on you, wah. No, I totally get it. It was something that I thought, man, that would be fun, because then people might start competing for the crates and you might start seeing conflict happening outside of the Covalex shipping hub, or possibly in the future, maybe Korea. There's all those weapon crates sitting inside of Korea. That could be an interesting place where all of a sudden, if those crates were something you could carry away and use or sell, and possibly for a lot of money, it'd be interesting to see how that all shook out. Now, on yesterday's show, I talked about the possibility of turning the Xeon Scout into a stealth scout, kind of giving it a little extra trick up its sleeve, It's just something to give it a little bit more and to kind of justify where it is in terms of armaments. I thought that would make it a much more interesting ship, especially having lost the second seat and, of course, 2 of its guns. Kind of felt like it needed a little bit more oomph, and I kind of feel that a stealth scout would not be a bad idea. And of course, some people agreed, some people didn't. But there's one comment in particular that I kind of want to address. Now, Karn the Betrayer O commented, too much stealth can ruin a game. I can kind of see that point of view. I mean, things like stealth bombers, stealth fighters, of course, stealth boarders, all these ships that can just, possibly just jump right out at you at the worst possible time. That's probably not going to be too fun. But I think, overall, I think that stealth is a really important mechanic. And with the current mechanics in Star Citizen, or the way things appear to be kind of shaking out, I'm not overly happy with them. But at the same time, I don't really have a different solution to the problem. So it's something that I really haven't talked about all that much, because I'm still kind of in my head, in the background, kind of wrestling with the idea, wrestling with the question from time to time and going, well, what would work? What would work better? For me, in my idealization, in my opinion, what I would like to see is something more like, back in the day, I was a huge fan of this submarine game called Aces of the Deep. And then we're talking way back in the day. And one of the things that I really liked about this game, and of course Silent Hunter, going on beyond that, was the fact that you could submerge your submarine. When you were hunting a convoy, you could submerge your submarine somewhere out in the middle of the Atlantic, and you could just get on the hydrophones and you could listen to, with the hydrophones, and they would give you a direction and a bearing towards a sound. And so as you were doing that, you could hear a distant convoy well beyond the horizon. You could hear that convoy. And one of the things that I used to love to do was I would get a bearing to that convoy, and I would kind of basically make a line on the map to where I figured that convoy was, approximately what direction they were in. And then I would sprint with time acceleration about 6 hours, and then I would kind of draw another line once I'd found the convoy with the hydrophones again, and from that I would try to kind of figure out, okay, I heard them from this direction here, I heard them from that direction here. I guess they're about on a line between here and here, so now I've got about roughly a Korsna speed possibly, and then I would kind of come back and try to put myself in their way so that I could kind of sneak into the convoy. That sort of stalking, that hunting, the prey type thing. That's the kind of gameplay that I would like to see in Star Citizen, but truthfully, I've never been able to, work around how to make that work. With Quantum and with all these things, it just doesn't work because, of course, I'm talking about sprinting for 6 hours and then sprinting back and, trying to get in front of a convoy with time acceleration on. In Star Citizen, you can't expect someone to sit there and say, well, I'm ready for 12 hours of gameplay, because obviously there are some people who are like, oh yeah, but there's going to be a lot of people who are like, no. And so I've always kind of tried to wrestle around the idea of trying to hunt people down like that. And for players who are not wanting to be hunted down, where they can do things to minimize the signature of their ship, minimize the EM or heat emissions that ship gives off, making them much harder to detect in space. I've always kind of favored that system. The idea of the quantum bubble and just putting it in space and just catching whatever flies by has never appealed to me. And so I always kind of envisioned Star Citizen as kind of more... I think idealized would be the right word. I've always idealized it as something where it was kind of a cat and mouse game, or just people playing against each other but not really knowing the opponent that they're playing against, and convoys and trade ships trying to slip by while pirates are trying to sniff them out. I've always kind of wanted it to go in that direction. And so stealth, I think, is integral to not just ships that are designated stealth, but ships that can possibly be made stealth through item 2.0 and whatever mods they decide to put on their ship. Certainly not to the degree of a dedicated stealth ship, but with a reasonable amount of signature reduction possible. I've always kind of wanted it to go that way, but I've never really been able to figure out the logistics of how that would work. Unless you were to go to a system of, say, free warping, where people could just warp to whatever coordinates they wanted to within space, which is something that I would like to see in the game. And then they would proceed down into the atmosphere, and it's that distance from whatever the closest you can get to a planet or a moon is. And it's that distance between their destination and there where they jump out of, or drop out of quantum. That's the point where they're vulnerable, and that's the point where you would have to go and hunt them down and seek them out when they kind of transition into this zone in between where they can and can't use quantum. And while they're trying to get down to their destination, that's when they're vulnerable. That's still trying to put together an idea in my head of how that would work and how that would be fair and balanced, but that's kind of the direction I would like to see it go. And so I kind of disagree with the idea that that too much stealth can ruin the game. I think when players are using it against each other, I think that it can be something that enriches the game and makes the game more fun and more interesting to play. I would really be disappointed if the game really just turned out to be quantum to this spot, quantum to that spot. Maybe you get dropped out of quantum, maybe you don't. Roll the dice. Very boring to me. Very, very boring to me. I would like to have it more of like a hunter stalking the prey, and if the prey is smart enough, the prey is going to get away type thing. So for me, from my perspective, you know what, stealth working both for and against you is a really interesting place to pit players against each other, you know, to see how they can fit their ships to slip past each other, how they can use different elements of that system to kind of deceive one another, make someone go look over here when you're actually over there, that sort of thing. I think that that would add a lot of depth to the game and make it a much richer experience, and not so much, you know, it just, oh, I pulled you out of quantum, haha, now I got you and there's no escape type situation. I would like to see it more of a hunt, but I've never really been able to figure out exactly how that would work within the Star Citizen format in a way that would make the game playable within a reasonable amount of time, if you know what I mean. To the point where a single cargo run doesn't take 6 to 8 hours or something like that. But I don't know. That's just my opinion on the subject, though not fully formed. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.